Good afternoon. This is May 3rd, 2024. Ever since the Chinese New Year happened during last February, I have decided to come back and to launch my system in the field of counseling psychology, what I have developed moving to the future is called the psychology of round and square. But before I get moving on, I ask for your allowance for this recent development of this teaching and exposure to the psychology round and square and how important that is. So I will give you overall background into the following segments. First of all, my background, my general background, which I highlighted as the cross-cultural experience in my life. Second, the academic preparation since 1974 to 1977, and then with a big gap to come in today, 2024, with the development early on, we call the 3C system. The 3C stands for communication dynamics. The second part is called communication analysis, basically. But in the middle of that is a very crucial element. I call it the cultural sphere. The cultural sphere in this educational surrounding where I developed the first 3C system, including the cultural spheres, relating back how I will be describing my cross-cultural experience in these various spheres. And this cultural spheric zone, and I was starting by my birthplace, Shanghai, already with the intonation of the multiple languages and dialects. I was exposed to the Shanghai and my mother's Cantonese, southern China, and then in the surrounding area in Suzhou, Hangzhou, and also around Shanghai with the conglomerate of people, my family, my two sisters, my brother, and my paternal grandmother who moved from Yuyao in Zhejiang province to Shanghai with their local accent, including my father. In the early part of this, the linguistic exposure by the sound and the tonality of the sound had given me a great deal of exposure. I lived in Shanghai from 1948 until 1952. Yes. And then my mother and the family had already moved to Hong Kong, eventually to Macau. So I would describe my 52 to 62, 10 years being raised in Macau, which was a Portuguese colony, but the predominant language is Cantonese, also is my mother tongue. So in this particular time and point, I was also exposed to the languages like English, in the post-war China, looking forward, all the people in transit, be they in Hong Kong, Macau, or some heading into Southeast Asia, other Chinese emigrated to Latin America, Europe. But in whatsoever sets of circumstances, I was baptized, educated by a very solid Roman Catholic religious order by the name of Salesians. I have also, from 52 to 62, 52, 70 to 62, when we immigrated to Brazil, and I have continued my education with this Salesian orders of the Roman Catholic order. And in this time and period, in my days in Macau, first we were exposed to the language English almost as a must, as mandatory, preparing for the future of the residents in Macau, Hong Kong, both the colonial states of Great Britain and Portuguese. And afterwards, during this time when we got baptized as a youngster, I was about 8 years old, and I have started to serve masses in Roman Catholic order, where you have to learn Latin, and also, very importantly, not Greek in written language, but Greek as in the Gregorian chant of the Roman Catholic order. And so I give this, every language is a sphere. When I'm talking about cultural spheres today, which I am still carrying with me, is almost like a pouch. Is almost like any of the goodies that my mindset, my memory can contain, and put it into this particular pouch. And in this particular way, I think culture is always a form of education before we know of education or educational systems. So in this introduction opening, you will see most of my presentation. You will see them in different spheric forms, round, square, oval, but the interface to each other. And now going back to the real focus, why, and now after 45 years absence from the academia, and basically I pay my own way commercially or economically during our 45 years of business, had given me the postmaster degree or my personal doctoral when you develop your own thesis, hypothesis, and whatnot. So, because during my time in the college days, younger days, maybe a little bit even more impulsive days, on the one side, we want to learn much about psychology. My love for psychology is because, for the most part, is because the languages, I should have it hyphenated: cultural anthropology, psychology, and language. So if you want to put this into a linguistic sphere, along with the psychologist sphere and the cultural anthropological spheres, they all match. The only way I can put my study, my life experience together into these various spheres by not putting into a pyramidal or hierarchical kind of a triangle. Because the spheres, there's an interplay, you shall see in different expressions other than the color, the sphere, the round and square. They can also have the translucency or the opacity of the design of these spheres, collectively cultural spheres. Because in any given time, you have a certain kind of a attitude when you're listening, hearing languages. I take pride that I can handle adequately 5 languages and plus 3 dialects in Chinese, reading and writing Chinese. Even I left Macau, my last cultural sphere of Asia, under the Chinese influence, that I have still maintained my language in Cantonese. I speak adequately the Putonghua or Mandarin, and have a good grasp of understanding of the dialects in Shanghai and some other regional language like Toisan from the Guangdong, the Cantonese province. And in so doing, in this aggregate, the way I can put my various exposure and language experience, academia, only in this cultural spheric forms, that I can find the matches, and I can find where I put the language, the tone. I'll give you a very simple example. The crossover from the Latin language had led me to good command in Portuguese, in Spanish, Italian, and again, these are the 3 basic languages making the linguistic group I call Romantina, or Roman Latino, and then with more evolution called the Romancina. Eventually, the Chinese language, graphically in image, can become the central language, but then the peripherals, how I can using the spheres to interface. Just a simple linguistic adaptation and adjustment. the word sinister in English, meaning suspicious persons, not with the clear transparency of who they were, coming from the Latin Italian word meaning left, sinistra in Italian. And sinistra, at one time or another, showing the past era in our human society, where the Roman Catholic one time think of all the left-handed people are the demon's child. In fact, during the time of Inquisition, they were executed, suspecting that they are not the normal sort. So from the word left, sinistra, to become sinister, it proves, it shows certain kind of a human error. We all make mistakes, language-wise and religion and organization. So just to show how I myself have always been fascinated with languages, and plus interest, and the most important of all is that I'm always curious. So by describing why I want today to start to express the creation of the psychology of round and square. There's a third shape, which is triangle. In this particular development, in the coming months, I will try to make my presentations and do my best to keep it at a 30-minute level or 45. And when it becomes more interactive, I will try to have it extended to 45 minutes, almost like a college or any lecture. But today, one more emphasis of the changing the dynamic of the cultural sphere. We are now totally into the digital age. Even starting in February, I was trying to organize myself to get ready to this, in this oral form of sharing what I have learned, what I know, and to starting to have interchanges with the audience such as yourself. Let me go back a little bit to psychology. Psychology, based on my personal research, when I was having my master's degree in 74 and 75, I was pretty much determined to want to stay pretty much in the sphere of counseling psychology. My master's degree was in the field of educational psychology and in the area of counseling and guidance. Okay? And that already has struck me very differently, because undergraduates from 1968 to 1972, I did have my psychology plus Spanish, a double major. But by observing the psychology and its development since Sigmund Freud, and before that there would be Mesmer, hypnosis, and all the other sort of discipline. But Sigmund Freud, as an Austrian, is the creator of the first discipline called psychology. And basically, in short, you can say how we human dealing with our anxiety. How can anxiety can develop into the degree of calling psychosis or neurosis. Okay, the degree of how severe when you're losing touch with reality, that becomes psychosis. And ever since Sigmund Freud, and for all this many years, the psychoanalysis, psychotherapy, psychiatry had dominated very much in the east coast of the US, eventually spreading out into the rest of the country. And along with it, gradually, that we have coming into many, many more of the evolution from therapeutic psychology into the area of educational psychology, including wonderful people. I just mentioned a few names, Adler, and then we're talking about Rollo May as another known figure, and much more. I personally have embraced the teaching of logotherapy by Viktor Frankl, someone who had turned the very dreadful event of the Jewish Holocaust and turned it into creating a therapy with meaning. And from that point onward, we have Fritz Perls, and in my time, I read tremendous amount about Erich Fromm, because in all these years in psychology, the only time that little window have the exposure of the Asian or the Chinese and Japanese, well, after all, Erich Fromm wrote the book Psychoanalysis and Zen Buddhism, which have the point of view presented by Suzuki from Japan. Well, Zen is already dominated in the world of Zen, which the Zen Buddhism, in the Chinese way, we pronounce it Chan. But regardless, that doesn't matter. What it really works in from the time of this evolution of psychology, instead from therapy, psychoanalysis, coming into more in the field of education, and then I have always enjoyed the work of Carl Rogers. And then when it come to the time in 1974, more in depth about the transactional analysis created by Eric Berne from Carmel, California, I have started gravitate of the use of the three sets of spheres represented by the Freudian term of superego culture, ego, I in Latin, id is the physical, biological, sexual nature of man, which is Freud had a lot stronger emphasis about the psychosexual and its dynamics. But when it comes to, at that time in point, when I was starting very much engaged with the use of the spheres again, started by Eric Burns, I have noted in one of my missions, or my purpose, going to college, going to psychology, is also whereas one of the major influence in my life in the cultural spheres is my 5 years I have spent in Brazil during my junior high school, American school comparison, and high school. I had totally fallen in love with the language of Portuguese, the people in Brazil, and very interestingly, I'm often gravitate by one or two words of a language. In Brazil, they always extended their hands. Between men, we hug, we embrace, a close embrace. And the women, we kiss, two cheeks for the married ones. And at that time in point, there's also a very interesting part of the protocol is the third kiss for the unmarried young lady, that the third, terceiro para casar. So the third one's preparing you for your marriage. And all this cultural adaptation with minor shocks from Asian to Brazil, and all this language, as I said, I have my cultural sphere, starting with the Chinese, the linguistic tongue from Shanghai, from Macau, Hong Kong, now coming to Brazil. The protocol, the greetings, the how we greet each other, bon dia, c'est un café. In other words, coffee is omnipresent. You know, I would go to a nice place, I would go to a friend's house, and a particular minor detail that I prefer this one May, the way she makes coffee. Yes, we drink cups and cups of coffee since I was 14, 15. I had not stopped. But in all this development of the cultural spheres, what impacted me the most was Eric Berne's spheres of his transactional analysis. All of you can Google transactional analysis and find out how the transactional analysis group uses the spheres. But at that time, when I was finishing my master's degree, I have embraced in the use of those figures of rounds by adapting a different shape. I have adapted the complementary rounds and rounds, or even a parent, a child, you can have the bigger round, smaller round, or the Asian, how we complement in the Japanese way, the Chinese way. We don't touch, we don't hug. We bow by the degree of how low you bow, but that can be all fit into the round of the transaction analysis. However, I developed another shape, a square, is when and where we doubt, we question. The square is not judgment, but it can be judging, but it's very quickly by the intensity or by the frequency we're using to judge and judge again. Okay, and factoring now today in the present day. From another area of communications, my friends, my schoolmates have given indication that we humans have 60,000 synapses of the stimuli: touch, feel, look, sound. And this is already is getting me even more alert to the application and the use of the psychology of Brown, from adapting from transaction analysis. And the square is just one of the shapes I have my personal input. And also by the distance of the two spheres: close, embracing; distance, complementary; big or small, respect of the level of between the two adult and a child, and vice versa. And from the square, I developed the third shape, which is half the square is a triangle. And that's how I began to use the three shapes with my students. And very quickly, without using the Freudian terminology, again with the variance of the different years and time of the other psychologists, from education to psychoanalysis to psychiatry, but I really, really have enjoyed my personal modification for one very simple purpose. At 16, when I finished my junior high, which is equating my last year to American high school as a freshman, going into the sophomore year, I was determined to go into the seminary school. One of the reasons is very simple. I have received great education, and I have advanced myself under the influence and educational system of the Salesians. By the way, Salesians, with the origin from Torino, Italy, and most people in the Catholic community know of them, is the Don Bosco School. And the school have often, by me, as a very good measure to help all youngsters. There's no exclusive, affluent or poor. But in most of my schools I have attended, we have those who can pay. Not just the Salesians, I think other Catholic schools have done that. Those who can afford to pay the normal fee. For those who cannot afford, there's a concession. Nobody have to know who had paid and who had not. And from that, the influential 4 years, the 5 years in Brazil, and I really felt with this progress, I want to continue with the Salesians into the high school. In Brazil, at that time, we had a division of the classical and the scientifico. One go to the science field, the other side go into the classical studies, education, elementary education to it's almost like the classical for the ladies, and the scientifico is for the male. Just the way I interpret at that time. And I wanted very much to follow the goals and missions of the Salesians, is to work with the poor. In that bracket of the Brazilian called poor, we have the variety. From the church itself, we have many missions. In Mato Grosso with the Chavantes, and this was another cultural anthropological curiosity of me about going into the hinterland in Brazil, and with the different tribes. Well, in fact, in the this last 45 years in my business, I will talk about it later on, but I have met with the Yanomamis, I have met with the Sintalaragas and other tribal groups in the midst of the Amazon, or the Sintalaragas is a tribal group that was from Rondonia in the reservation they call Roosevelt, which was created by Teddy Roosevelt when he went into the jungles. And the state called Rondonia is the colonel who had accompanied Roosevelt in his mission is called General Rondon, Rondon. That's why the state Rondonia was named after him. So with that particular focus, going back to education, which I've received very, very nicely from the Salesians, and to put something back, not necessarily I want to be a seminarian, but I want to continue my education with the Salesians. Of course, there can be another future into the university, the seminary school level. But my focus was, how can we handle psychology and counseling? Not from the quote-unquote expensive therapeutic psychoanalysis from New York, using New York as a base of cost. But how can we have the type of educational psychology more so in the name of counseling and guidance? I'm not there to do therapy to healing, even though many counseling have such healing effect and have therapeutic values. But the real focus is counseling and guidance. And that already have coming into my mind. How can I bring the psychology and the counseling psychology, modifying from the language once started by the German group, the Germanic language, into English, eventually going into Portuguese, and then back to the native language, indigenous language in Brazil. And here, the shapes of the round, square, and triangle very much had answered my own sense of a procurement of the methodology. And such idea eventually got enriched and enhanced by the Brazilian educator, thinker, philosopher, Paulo Freire. Paulo and I, we call each other Xará. In the Portuguese language, when you have the same name, we call each other Xará. And in Spanish, that's called Tocayo. So after all these years, after 45 years, I use my 45 years business. Even today, we're continuing with the business. It become very much a personal research. If academia want to put me there to my personal doctoral level, that's great. That's wonderful. But what had really come up today is because I want to fulfill what I have started 1974, 1975. 1977, 76 to 77, I had my job with the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee as a counselor psychologist. But back in our mind, we're thinking about, okay, I would like to head back to Madison area, which, by the way, I almost become the assistant dean of students at Madison in 1977. However, I do not want to stay on the area of political, but between University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and University of Wisconsin-Madison, and between my team, my staff, my boss, have the little political games gone on. So between that time in Milwaukee and Madison, I have decided, forget it. The desire to become independent is more than at that time, my academia, even though I have a fully functional program of the psychology, round and square, established at that time. And so this time have come the program in the 3 C's that you will see in the 20 configuration I'm putting in separate time so people can visualize, and how the 3 C system had become the psychology round and square. Because the psychology round and square do not need to have a written language, much less from German to English, English to Portuguese, and then back to with the indigenous. But much more than that, the mission of schooling at John Bosco or Don Bosco had also put me thinking, how can we work with the youngsters in the towns, in the region, as favela, which is a shanty town, the outside of Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, or the major metropolitan area. There are very, very many youngsters where they live have no school system, there's no sewer system, there's totally a very difficult economic zones in Brazil. But if I can put something back for my learning and my education by the Salesians in Brazil, in Macau, I would like to put this back to the system country, Brazil. Beyond Brazil, there's many areas in India, from the Philippines, from the rest of Latin America. And that's why, and that's how I have devoted before, and now I'm committing again myself to make the psychology of round and square. I don't say triangle, because triangle is just part of the square. That will be eventually, can be emphasized much better, and can be developed system of teaching psychology round and square. Not by me alone, but the system itself can open up to all kinds of schools and academia. But at the end, it's the most simplistic form of communication. It is also the 45 years of experience plus 2+ years of graduate school in my thinking about how we bring psychology from its complexity, from its practice, into a everyday psychology. In fact, the terminology about psychology round and square, I had to subtitle it in the Romance language. I just called it the popular psychology, or psicologia popular, in Portuguese, psicologia. And so for this segment, I would just want to stop here. I would like to welcome friends of mine, audience, colleagues, for some of those, knowing that I'm coming back to education. We are all in this age of retirement. I was born in 48, makes me like I'm 76 today. Nevertheless, is a good start, it's a good beginning, and happening in a very dynamic time of the digital age. We all know about, in the way I frame it, my world, digital world, is called BDBC, big data and big cloud. The cloud holds the data. In between, AI is coming very strongly. We can do educational seminars. We can do exchanges, interface with each other with the using of Google Meet, Zoom, or any other media. And all this can be recorded and so used. With what I just developed in China, just hearsay about Huawei, the language soon can have maybe 1/30th of a second or 1/60th broadcast after speaking. That means eventually in what we do can be produced in 100+ languages. And also, I'm still learning about the system in YouTube with Google. The narration, the narratives can be documented. So written words along with speaking will enhance and enrich the future of education. And I follow very much, brace up pretty much by the Greco-Roman concept and idea of the orator in the Greek time. Even in China, Confucius have never written himself, but the orators, the speakers speak, and the scribers write. But today, how lucky we are. We can speak, we can have the instant taping or recording, and then you can add it in whatsoever form or any error that was recorded phonetically that is different than what your original intention. So this entire system of communications will enhance and enrich what I'm about to do. And I hope the psychology round and square will be inspiring to many, and we'll be happy to collaborate with one another. As I said, a popular psychology is a people's psychology, that we can all find a way to have the best understanding of one and another, between person, between countries, between different cultures. And it's never too late. Even that I'm at 76, I am very excited about this intro of the psychology round and square. See you next time.